It's the Bradfield Weather Podcast, underwritten by Action Carpet and Floor Covering of Simsbury, a family-run business that's built for you, and by McAllen Construction. McAllen Construction, servicing the entire state, from the first dig to the last nail. I am Dan Lovallo. He is meteorologist Bradfield. We are putting this podcast together on Friday, December the 12th. And Brad, as we look at the forecast from an overview standpoint, as we wonder what might be happening with incoming snow, what can you tell us?
Well, the snow lovers on the I-95 corridor, Dan, who have not seen any snow thus far this year, are going to see some snow. And it's going to be from about midnight tomorrow night, which is Saturday, December 13th, to about lunchtime on Sunday, December 14th. So we've got a little bit of a snowfall coming. Let's call it a light snowfall for the state, Dan. Probably on the order of 1 to 3 inches as we look at the state in total. Then we look at very cold weather following this little snow system. The very cold weather will be coming in Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. It looks like it'll be seasonable on Wednesday. But then as we head later in the week next week, Thursday and Friday, I think we're going to have a thaw and a melt here in Connecticut. So, Dan, some of us in northern Connecticut, you guys in the northwest hill towns of Connecticut have snow cover. We're going to add to that snow cover on Sunday so that the entire state has snow on the ground. But I do think the thaw of next Thursday and Friday is going to wipe out the snow cover. Now, if you think about it and think about the calendar, next Thursday is exactly 1 week prior to Christmas. So it's Thursday, December 18th. It's warm that day. It's warm Friday the 19th. So if we're going to get snow for Christmas, something has to happen between Saturday, December 20th, and Thursday, Christmas Day. And as we go along through the podcast today, I'll let you know what I think about that.
Now, what I find interesting about the weather is we've been in this polar vortex grip. From an atmospheric standpoint, what's happening to perhaps change things and at least give us a couple days of mild weather?
Well, yeah, Dan, what we're looking at is a normal relaxation of the jet stream. It tends to pulse. We were in a deep trough here since about Thanksgiving. So the last few days of November, and what is today? The 12th? Yeah. Today's the 12th. 11 out of the first 12 days of December, Dan, have been below normal. And not just a degree or two below normal, as much as 19, 20 degrees below normal. It has been very cold to start the month of December. But we are seeing a change in the upper level wind flow, Dan, from this huge ridge to deep trough in the east. It's becoming more of what we call a zonal flow is going to take over. And a zonal flow is more or less, coming in off the Pacific, moving right across the northern tier of the United States and right through New England. So storms move at a much quicker rate in this zonal flow that looks like it's going to take over toward the middle part of next week and beyond, such that our long-range computer modeling now, you look out in the 8-day to 14-day range, Dan, they've got most of the country painted red. In other words, above normal in terms of temperature. They've got a little bit of a normal up over New England here. So what are we trying to say here? What we're trying to say is that if the normal daily high temperature here as we head toward the middle of December, say in the low 40s, and the normal nightly low is in the, 24, 25 degree range, that's what we're looking at. in the 8th day, 9th day, 10th day. That's what we're looking at as an average temperature, something near normal. You go back and look at let's just take December 20th as an example. You go back and look at 100 years of December 20ths and what has been the average high temperature. And you average it all out. It comes to about maybe 41. And what is the average low temperature? You average it all out. It comes to about 23. That's what we're looking at when we get out toward those immediate days before Christmas. And now you might think, well, if you're a snow lover and you want a white Christmas, that's not good. Well, my answer to you, Dan, would be not necessarily, because what typically happens where storms typically form is where you have a convergence zone, where you have warm air colliding with cold air. When you have the collision of the air masses, that's what a front is. A front, like ahead of a cold front, you might have a southerly wind, and behind the cold front, you have a northwesterly wind. Now, what do I mean by convergence? Well, a southerly wind going like this, and then a northerly wind going like this, they hit each other. They can't move down into the ground, obviously, so the air moves up. And that's one way you get clouds to form and you get precipitation through convergence. Another is lift. You've got an air mass coming along, and it encounters a mountainside, say the Green Mountains of Vermont or the White Mountains of New Hampshire. What happens to that area of wind? It moves up along the mountain, and it moves up the mountain. And as it moves up the mountain, things change within the parcel of air. The temperature changes. It usually lowers as the air mass moves up. What happens to the volume of that parcel of air? What happens to the pressure of that parcel of air? It all changes. You can get that. So that's forced convergence going up the side of a mountain. But what I'm talking about with this convergence is this is the area that you tend to get the clouds forming and the precipitation right along a boundary, if you will. And so it's kind of a long-winded answer, but what I'm trying to tell you is that as this warm air overtakes the country, most of the country, New England's staying near normal in terms of temperature out in that 8 to 14 day range. But the cold air being just to our north up in Canada, this will be the area of that convergence that I'm talking about, Dan. So even though the temperature's warm, the pattern looks to become more stormy. And if everything works out just right, I mean, you've got a normal daily high of 41, a normal nightly low of 23. I mean, there are many degrees of temperature in there where if it precipitates, it could be in the form of snow. So what I'm saying is, it does indeed look warmer as we head toward the Christmas holiday, but does that necessarily mean we're not going to have a white Christmas? And the answer to that is no.
So you're not ruling out the possibility of a white Christmas?
Not ruling it out at all.
Okay. Well, on that note, let's get to our On the Weather Map segment, because we've got this storm coming in, and I know people are concerned about not necessarily the snow amounts, although obviously they're concerned about that, but is it going to be a wet snow? Is it going to be a fluffy snow? What can you tell us about the On the Weather Map segment?
I can 100% tell you, Dan, with full certainty that it will be a dry, fluffy snow.
Yes.
Yeah. All the way down to the Connecticut shoreline, all the way down to the I-95 corridor. It is going to be a dry, fluffy snow. So it's not going to be hard. It's not going to be hard to remove. You were talking to me off air about my shirt here today. I'm repping my team, the New England Patriots, and you know what they call it, Dan? They call Sunday a T-shirt and hat day. You know why they call it that?
Why is that?
because if the Patriots beat Buffalo on Sunday in Foxborough, no matter what happens the rest of the year, the Patriots have clinched the division.
That's right.
So they have their caps are all made. That has New England as the division champs for 2025, and they're all set to go. The only thing we have to do is get a Patriots victory on Sunday, but they've got plenty of time. I mean, they've got 4 more games, and the future looks bright for the New England Patriots. The immediate future and the long range future.
Well,
And I won't talk about your Giants, Dan. I'm not going to.
Please don't.
I'm not going to do that to you.
But I don't, and I applaud your Patriots and what they've done. But for my sports segment, I am picking Buffalo to beat the Patriots on Sunday.
You got a score for me?
No, it really depends on the weather. Weather can.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And do you want me to tell? I'll give you the weather right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Foxborough, I said the snow will be here in Connecticut between about midnight tomorrow night, which is Saturday night, going into Sunday morning, till about noon on Sunday. That's the snow here in Connecticut. Now, Foxborough shifted to the east, maybe 70 miles, something like that, shifted off to the east of us. It will be a little bit slower to get through Foxborough. So I do think when the game starts at 1:00 on Sunday, it will be snowing. I'm thinking on the order of 1 to 2, maybe 3 inches of snow for Foxborough. It'll be the fluffy snow. It'll be the pretty snowflakes coming down and everything. But I have to think in my head, Dan, and temperatures in the 20s. I have to think in my head that this is not going to impact the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they play at they play up at, what is it called, Orchard Park, but
Yes.
but they get those snow squalls off the lakes and everything. So I think if any team is prepared for a snow game, it's probably more Buffalo than it is New England. And we're going to have to see how Drake May, the North Carolina boy, does in cold and snow. But he hasn't let us down at all yet this year, so he probably won't let us down on Sunday either. But I have to think that snow probably favors the Bills.
Well, they just came out of a game in Buffalo, which they won against Cincinnati in the driving snow, one of those snow squalls off the lake, and they came from behind to win. So they're obviously used to playing in that kind of weather.
I saw that too, and I think that was a critical third down. It was like 3rd and 15, and Allen just tucked the ball and ran, and he got 16 or 17 or something. He made the critical first down. So that's the thing that I worry about. Somebody's got to spy him. My assignment is just not to let him run.
Right.
Type of thing. So we'll see. But it should be a nice day to sit inside, sit by the fire, and watch some Sunday football.
Now, what can you tell us about the timing of this storm?
Timing, Dan, it starts tomorrow evening. I want to say between 9 p.m. and midnight on Saturday night. Now, so if you've got evening plans, my Sandy and I are going to my wife's boss's Christmas party. So I said, when we get there, it's not going to be snowing, but when we go home, it may very well be. So, but it's not going to be like, snowing like crazy. I mean, it'll be this light, fluffy, blowing around snow, kind of a pretty thing. But it's going to snow all night, and it will snow most of Sunday morning and start tapering off from northwest to southeast across the state, let's say between 9 a.m. and noon. So it's about a 12-hour storm. That's the timing here in Connecticut. So from about 9 p.m. to midnight on Saturday evening start time, and about 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Sunday end time here in Connecticut. So why did I say it's going to be snowing in Foxborough? They're about 70 miles to the east. So it's going to take longer for the snow to go through there. So it'll probably be ending in Foxborough during the game.
Okay. Now, the snow amounts, you're saying we're not going to get that much, but can you pinpoint it for us?
Yeah, you look at you got all different kinds of snowflakes. You were applauding when I was talking about it being the dry, fluffy snow instead of the heavy, wet stuff. Well, a lot of times our temperature sounding, that means as you go up through the column of air right up over us, is borderline. And that means the snowflakes get kind of mangled as they're coming down. They may melt, and then they might freeze and then try to reform a little bit or whatever as they move on down. And you can end up with grapple, you can end up with ice pellets, you can end up with all these different things. We always call that the Connecticut mix. You get the snow, the sleet, the freezing rain, the rain, and that's because the column of air above us is typically critical. On Sunday, I think we have no problem with the column above us. It's going to be extremely cold. Now, there's a temperature through the profile of the atmosphere that works to give us beautiful snowflakes. The kind you see in a textbook. And I think that is going to be the kind of snow we get on Sunday. So those flakes can tend to pile up. So usually we talk about a 10-to-1 conversion. So you get about a tenth of an inch of melted precipitation as a first approximation. You move the decimal point, you get about 1 inch of snow. But when you get this kind of cold column, sometimes you can get a 20-to-1 ratio, and sometimes you can get a 30-to-1 ratio. So that's why I'm kind of hedging a little bit. You look at the precipitation and it doesn't look overly impressive. I mean, you would think in a normal 10-to-1 situation, we'd go for about an inch of snow. But I can see the fluff factor here contributing. So that's why I'm going for 1 to 3 inches for the state, Dan. And I favor along and north of I-84, 1 to 2 inches, and closer to where the actual storm tracks, which will be down, off New Jersey and then south of Cape Cod. I favor south of I-84 down to the Connecticut shoreline, 2 to 3 inches of fluffy snow accumulation.
All right. So the storm is emanating from where?
It's complicated. It's one of those clippers, Dan. Its origin is up over Western Canada, Saskatchewan and Alberta province and Manitoba province, but it's diving to the southeast, and that's the energy of the storm. Now, if you look at the storm, you don't see much on the weather map right now because when a storm is coming from a place like that over the Canada prairies, it's moisture starved. So you look at a radar, there's not much going on, but you have to look at the upper air situation, and you have to look at the satellite pictures and whatever to see the swirl and the clouds coming down. So that clipper system, right now is diving southeast out of Western Canada. By tomorrow evening, the surface low pressure, or what is going to be the clipper, will be in the northern Great Lakes. But the energy, the upper air energy, will be coming down, swinging down rapidly through Montana. And then by tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, the low pressure area will be in the heartland of the United States. And we're going to start, once you start moving down to get some moisture coming out of the Gulf, coming from the Great Lakes when they're not frozen and so forth, we're going to see snow breaking out tomorrow morning, South Dakota, Iowa, Illinois. And at the same time, Dan, you have been hearing about this bitter outbreak coming down in, essentially out of Western Canada, will be sliding into Montana, the Dakotas, Minnesota, even impacting Chicago. I would not be surprised, and I should have looked at this. I didn't look at this. Maybe as our sports guy, Dan, where the Vikings might be playing on Sunday, because I do think that on Sunday morning in Minneapolis and Duluth and St. Paul, we are looking at temperatures on the thermometer. I'm not talking even wind chill. I'm saying on the thermometer, like 30 below.
Wow.
I mean, this is uh, just incredible cold. So that's why I'm talking about the column above us. We don't have to worry about this being rain or anything like that. I mean, this is pure Arctic air. By Saturday evening, the snow shifts to the east into Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. We've got the Arctic front. Now, tomorrow is going to be in the 30s, and you might be saying, Brad, you're nuts. This is not bitter Arctic cold. I mean, it's in the 30s. It's a normal December day, kind of ho-hum. True, you're right. The core of the cold air, though, this time is going to be born in the north central plains, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, moving down towards Chicago, that area. I mean, they are going to get the cold. We are going to get the snow. The snow will shift into our region Saturday night and Sunday morning. But Dan, the way the upper level pattern is oriented, it does not look like it's going to slow down. It does not look like it's going to have time to become a big storm. If it did, and that's the big question. If who's going to get this snow, the heavy snow, it would be, if anyone gets 6 inches of snow in Connecticut, I don't think it's going to happen. But if anyone does, it's Mystic. Okay. And if anybody gets, 8 inches of snow out of this, it's Chatham and Barnstable and maybe Nantucket and maybe the Vineyard. So you see what I'm saying? It's as the storm moves out, as the energy moves out into the Atlantic, all of a sudden this moisture-starved clipper has moisture available to it. But it keeps going as it's strengthening. And if anybody gets it, it will be the places that are, stick out most into the ocean. So you're looking at extreme southeastern Connecticut out toward Cape Cod.
By the way, the Vikings do play indoors, so that always helps when weather's like that. But what about after the storm? What can we expect for after the storm?
Well, Dan, sprawling high pressure, that Arctic high, is going to be over Kentucky on Monday. It is going to be windy here. So we've got the Clipper departing, the Sunday Clipper departing, the true Arctic high from Western Canada, now over Kentucky, advancing. It'll be windy here, and it will be cold. I think the high temperature on Monday, up toward, let's say, Norfolk and Colebrook and Heartland, even maybe Torrington, may not get out of the teens for the air temperature. And we are talking winds, Dan, over 30 miles per hour on Monday. So we are talking bitter, bitter cold day. I would say the highs for the state will be anywhere from 18 to 24 on Monday. Now, we talked earlier about the progressive jet stream pattern. So, in other words, nothing at this point is locking. So, everything is sort of transient, moving along. Tuesday, the high will be stretched out from Ontario province in Canada down to the North and South Carolina border. We have a very cold start on Tuesday. I wouldn't be surprised if very little wind. That's the good news. I wouldn't be surprised if some towns in Connecticut Tuesday morning are below zero. But we've got a sunny day coming up on Tuesday, a light northwesterly flow, temperature between 26 and 32 across the state. So whatever snow we get on Sunday, sticking around Monday, sticking around Tuesday, not going anywhere. Wednesday, the high slips off the North and South Carolina coast. And remember what I've always told you, a weather truth. The wind circulates clockwise around high pressure. So we start getting into a west and southwesterly airflow on Wednesday of milder air, but it's only going to be seasonable, Dan. It's been so cold lately that seasonable is going to feel warm. So on a daily basis, the temperature should be getting to between 36 and 42 degrees. That's what it's going to be on Wednesday. So Wednesday, we will have a seasonable day in terms of the high temperature. Now, by Thursday, we're going to have a storm in Lake Superior, a warm front pushing through into northern sections of New England, a southwesterly flow over Connecticut. That's where I think we get the melting, and temperatures up into the 40s coming in on Thursday. Now, that Lake Superior storm is going to move down the St. Lawrence River Valley of eastern Canada, swing its Arctic front through here on Friday. Before the Arctic front gets here, though, it's in the 40s again. Once the front goes through, it drops to the 30s, and then it's windy and dropping into the 20s coming up by dark. So essentially, we've got the colder air relaxing toward the middle and later parts of next week, the warmer air coming north. We in New England are still near that storm track and a lot of fast-moving storms. So we're going to have to wait until we move toward Christmas Day, Dan, to try to figure it out. I was looking at the European computer model when I first woke up this morning, and I'm an early riser like you, Dan. I was up at around 5:30 this morning, and I was looking at the European computer model for the actual Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And it had a 3 to 6 inch snowstorm for us. But then, you know what we talk about all the time, the term that I will give Bernie Rayno of AccuWeather full credit on, the computer model huggers are going to say the windshield wiper effect, the storm's going to hit, the storm's going to miss, the storm's going to hit, the storm's going to miss as we move between now and Christmas Day. Well, 6 hours later, so in essence, the 1 a.m. run of the European model only brought about an inch of snow to northern Connecticut on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. So, but here's my point. My point is, it's way, way, way too early to pin down any specifics. But the thing I will say to you is if we have the cold air over Canada and the warm air in the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, knocking on our door, trying to come into New England. So we've got the warm air to our south, the cold air to our north. We are in the storm zone. So anything can happen. And we're going to have to wait until we get to those 4 or 5 days before Christmas to try to figure out the details, Dan, about that windshield wiper effect. Will the storm hit? Will the storm miss? Will the storm hit? Will the storm miss? So we will wait to figure that out.
Of course, you know what you've done with those comments? You've given all these so-called quote-unquote influencers enough clickbait to last for the next 12 days.
Well,
That's
the thing I look at, Dan, is reputation, and I I I I feel good when somebody looks at the podcast or listens to our podcast and says, Brad, I was waiting for what you said about the storm because, you know, now I feel so badly for my friends that are on television right now. Rachel over at Fox 61, Ryan at my old station, Channel 30, Gil down at Channel 8 in New Haven, because they are constantly fighting the battle with these clickbait people that the clickbait people will see on, and we call that cherry picking, Dan. You look at, between now and Christmas, we're going to have about, let me think, oh, 10, 10 days would be 40 computer model runs. So, what are we about? We're about
13
13,
days away.
13 days away. So we're about, um, 40, we're about 50 plus model runs away from what we're going to see on Christmas. So they can cherry pick any one of those 50 model runs that has a big snowstorm over Connecticut or has a big 50-degree temperature thing. That was happening with the clickbait people a couple of days ago, that all of a sudden this massive blowtorch of warm air was coming. And, we might as well put on our bathing suits for Christmas, right?
Right.
But, so but my credible friends that are on television have to battle this constantly. You know, Behind some moniker on social media might be a 12-year-old kid down in their basement. You don't know who's making the prediction.
Well, you're
So
absolutely right. And if you go on Facebook, all these weather pages on Facebook, and then you try to find out who is behind the weather pages, and you don't know. It's some fancy name, but you don't know who the actual entity is behind these weather pages.
right, and everybody has access nowadays to the National Weather Service and their maps. So you can put up a fancy map to get your clickbait and get everybody's attention. So what I'm trying to say is you look legit because of, the map you put up and so forth. But whether you are legit is highly debatable. So, I am just so thankful. I thank God every day that I was a meteorologist back when you were on
Right.
the radio, Dan, that I was a meteorologist in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, because right now, and then you look on, and so much is done about the athletes too, how they, donated all this money to every single person that was on the plane and stuff. And you find out that, to coin our president's terminology, that it's all fake news, that you're reading like this story that's like totally made up,
Right.
but it's out there like it's legitimate.
Mhm.
And I mean, I have to say, there's been a time or two that these stories have fooled me. So I'm just saying that the people that are putting out this clickbait, you have to be very, very careful where you're getting your information from. So, unless it's attributed to Rachel Frank at Fox 61 or Gil Simmons at Channel 8 or, Ryan Hanrahan at Channel 30, I would not pay much attention to it.
I'm with you. And on that note, as we put this together on the 12th of December, a Friday, what does our immediate forecast look like?
Dan, it looks like it's going to be sunny and breezy throughout the day today, with temperatures in the upper 20s to the middle 30s across our state. Tonight, increasing clouds, temperatures cold between 16 and 22. But what else is new? It's been cold for weeks now. Now, for Saturday, thickening clouds. So, you're going to go through the day tomorrow and think, something's up. Snowstorms on the way, and snow is on the way, developing Saturday night between 9 p.m. and midnight. We're going to see the snow breaking out across the state. Sunday morning, snow on the tune of 1 to 3 inches, favoring 1 to 2 north of I-84, factoring in proximity to the storm, 2 to 3 as we head south of I-84, especially down toward the I-95 corridor. Temperatures in the 20s. The wind is cranking. The temperature's bitterly cold on Monday, low 20s for the highs. Tuesday, sunny, upper 20s for the highs. So the snow of Sunday not going anywhere. Wednesday, mostly cloudy, 36 to 42. The snow melt begins in earnest on Thursday, cloudy and in the 40s. Friday, it's in the 40s before an Arctic front comes along, Dan. Temperatures drop from the 30s down into the 20s by late Friday. And by then, we'll have another podcast for you.
All right. And on that note, my friend, to you and Sandy and our audience, be well. Enjoy the weekend and enjoy the Courier and Ive snowfall we're going to be getting.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it, Dan. To you and Susan, have a great weekend, and to all our listeners and now viewers of the podcast, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad. The Bradfield Weather Podcast has been underwritten by McAllen Construction. McAllen Construction, servicing the entire state from the first dig to the last nail, and by Action Carpet and Floor Covering of Simsbury, a family-run business there to serve you.